All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Friday, November 7th. Happy Friday to everyone out there. We got ourselves an 11-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video, some NBA Cup action. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, make sure to keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That's where you'll find all of my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest, if you do want to fade me, all of that absolutely free down in the pinned comment. Now, in terms of how we did yesterday, we had the one game. We had two plays on it. We had Royce O'Neal's over in PRA. That one, honestly, looks kind of sweat-free because of the rebounds and assists that he put up. But, yeah, he didn't score a point for, the longest time. That does come through. But our bigger play, the over 221.5, does not come through as that game finished at, I believe it was, 217, 218, something like that. So, yeah, we do lose a little bit off the top. I guess the good thing is, if you guys recall, we were coming into this game with a 10-1 night the night before, so what would that put us at? An 11-2 run. Maybe that sounds a little bit nicer than the 1-1 day yesterday. The ride of the day, we had some nice plays out there. IAW, can we pump in some crowd noise for the man? Can we drop the cha-ching? 4 days in a row cashing the NBA ride of the day. You can see here the tracker is up to date. IAW well in the lead in terms of the leaderboard we have here for the ride of the day. One thing I will say is my man LA Adams, he's hit a plus 286 for us. And then yesterday, Jalen Green, in his first game back, he said, you know what? Let's go over 24.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Jalen Green had 29 points. So he hit it with just points alone for plus 216. Let's drop the cha-ching again. The soundboard's getting some action today. Chris comes in with the third ride of the day. Honestly, I thought it was a good look, and Gillespie went out there and had, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, or vice versa, whatever. 12 rebounds and assists. 1 point. What's going on there? I think it was a good look. He just did not score the ball there whatsoever, Colin Gillespie. So, you know what? 2 for 3 in the ride of the days yesterday with that big banger from LA Adams. I think it was a good day overall. If you're watching this, you're like, what the heck is the ride of the day? Guys, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day down in the comments. I jump on board with one new person each and every day and give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you win, like we've seen IAW do, now like we've seen LA Adams do, if you win, we continue to roll and ride with your plays as you go on a little bit of a streak there. So we're looking for one new replacement today, guys. Get those hashtag ride of the days down in the comments. Let's go ahead and jump into today's slate, huh? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Started off with the Magic taking on the Celts. The Celtics team at 4-5, Magic 3-5. This Magic team has definitely been I see all the comments, right? The Magic should be on the ban list because I was high on the Magic coming into this season, and, they're not really doing much for me, right? Even their last couple wins here, Charlotte and Washington, clap it up, big whoop. Now they play the Celtics, who are playing teams tough. I mean, they have the one real bad game on their season, which the Rockets smoked them, but it's either they've kind of beat teams badly or stayed in close games against good teams. I do think that if we look at it from a perspective as to where these two teams like to score the ball, it kind of tells a picture. So on our NBA dashboard, which, guys, if you want access to this, head over to GuyBostonSports.com. Go to the members area in the NBA dashboard. If you use code EV5, EV, then just number 5, you're going to get your first month of the all sports dashboard, meaning you get the NBA dashboard, the NFL dashboard, any dashboard we have live, you get that for the first month for $4.99, just under $5. So go ahead and check it out. But what I want to look at here is where these two teams score from, specifically the Celtics. The Celtics shooting a lot of above the break three, so up here, right? And then a lot of mid-range jumpers right here. Now, Orlando does hold their opponents off from shooting those pretty well in terms of, preventing them from shooting it. But when they do, there is some quality behind it, right? Orlando, 37.1% of their opponents above the break, and then 46% to their opponents in the mid-range. Those being the number 1 and 2 spots that the Celtics team likes to shoot in and shoot at. Makes me want to lean towards the Celtics here. I mean, you're getting a really good number for a team that, like I mentioned, they they stay in games, and Orlando has been underwhelming. Right now, you can get Celtics money line for plus 141 or get them plus 3.5 at minus 105. I think both of those are definitely live. In terms of what we have from a total here, 227, I did mention that, the Celtics team may be able to score on Orlando, but they're still not the most efficient offense out there, kind of middle of the pack right now. And Orlando's offense is definitely not efficient. I think I like the idea of the under here. We have two, decent enough teams in terms of opponents' points per game. Actually, the Celtics, one of the top teams in terms of fewest points allowed, but a top 10 team in terms of defensive efficiency. And then Orlando, like I mentioned, is a top half team. In terms of points allowed, I think they're middle-ish of the pack. But I still don't think the Celtics offense is going to absolutely demolish the Magic, but just enough to keep it close and potentially win the game. All right, Washington taking on Cleveland. We can probably keep this one fairly brief here. I think that this spread makes sense. Cleveland's a much better team, and Washington don't really know exactly what to do with them, right? I don't think that in a NBA Cup game, it's as easy to be like, oh, well, they might take their foot off the gas and, backdoor cover. Like, obviously, there's going to be point differentials that matter and everything like that. So I do think these better teams, when they're playing a bad team, certainly have a little bit of more incentive to keep this thing going. A 13-point win versus a 20-point win could matter, right? So I do lean towards the Cavs just because of the better team. I don't know if I can actually get there myself in terms of, laying 13.5 points, but it is where I'm at as of right now. That total seems awfully high from the Wizards' perspective. This is a decent enough Cavs defense, 10th in defensive efficiency right now, right? And the Wizards playing at the 17th slowest pace. So why would I assume that this Wizards team is going to put up any sort of a big number? The Cavs may, but I'm going to lean Wizards team total over. Right now, that total's way up there, 241.5, right? So you're getting a Wizards team total for decent enough at under 116.5. This season, they've scored under that in, I believe it's 5 of 8 games, but their last 4 games, 108, 94, 102, 107. Pretty damn low. All right, real quick, guys, I want to talk to you about DirecTV, not the satellite and having this whole installation process. I know that's where your mind might go, but they now have the DirecTV app and DirecTV streaming, which is absolutely clutch, especially with all of these little hitches out there in the market in terms of, channels being removed from certain platforms and stuff like that. Get everything in one place with DirecTV streaming, guys. All I have to do is download the app, sign up, sign in, and start watching. They have over 50 channels, leader in the market, 50 sports channels, including obviously all of the obvious, national broadcasting ones, but they also have, I think, 30 plus regional broadcasts as well. And you can link up things like League Pass or, NFL Red Zone and stuff like that. Absolutely clutch, especially at a time like right now. Check it out, guys. Check the link down in the description as well as the pinned comment. You can get your first couple years $10 off, meaning you're saving up to $240 with at least the choice package. So check it out, guys. That link will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Again, DirecTV, think about it, $85 a month. You're getting all of the sports you want, especially in a time when things seem pretty damn volatile, right? We also have this QR code if it makes it easier for you right now. If you're watching this on your TV or your laptop, whip that phone out, scan the QR code right here. Get that DirecTV app, and again, just simplify everything. This is not the satellites and all that. No, it is streaming, and they have everything that you need in one place. You don't need to go flying back and forth. So go check it out, guys. Again, the link will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Shout out to DirecTV, and let's get back to these games. Hawks taking on the Raptors. I think this is going to be a very close one. Actually, the spread and total are not messed up. Let's go ahead and fix that. Well, the spread and total graphic is bugging. So you know what? We'll just say it. How about that? Old-fashioned way. Atlanta, 2-point favorites at home here. Total at 235.5. This is, I think, going to be a very, very good game. You have these two teams. They played earlier in October, and the Raptors absolutely demolished them. But this Atlanta team has been very resilient, especially without Trae Young playing. I mean, last time he played, he did have a good game against the squad, but he was a minus 14 in the plus minus. So I don't necessarily think that this is just because Trae Young, is out, that this totally throws them out of the water here. Toronto is healthy now, starting lineup of Quickly, Barrett, Ingram, Barnes, and Pirtle. That's obviously, a pretty good starting lineup, especially with Atlanta being okay to run. I think I'm going to lean towards Toronto, but I think this is going to be a very, very close game. But the fact that we can get plus money on the Toronto side of things, and I do think that they have a little bit better of a comprised team and starting lineup, I think that's going to be a spot that we go ahead and look at. And one thing that I will mention is this Toronto Raptors defense has struggled in the isolation so far this year. Atlanta's not running any isolation realistically. Same thing with the pull-up jumpers. Toronto struggled to prevent that. Well, Atlanta, bottom 5 in the league in terms of frequency. So it's almost like, okay, our two little weaknesses there on the Toronto side of things, well, Atlanta doesn't do. So now let's just play basketball, and I think they have more talent out there as of right now. So give me Toronto. In terms of a total, 235.5 does seem just a tad bit low for two teams that are, nearly top 5 in pace. So I'm going to slightly lean towards the over. When it comes to player props here, I like the idea of someone in the mid-range against this Atlanta squad. So pick your poison. It's either going to be Brandon Ingram or, Scotty Barnes. And I do say pick your poison because we are not fully, but at a point where, I thought this offense for Toronto was going to flow. I've now watched a few different times, and it's starting to seem a little bit more like what we originally would have thought was your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. So yeah, it could be the Brandon Ingram night. It could be the Scotty Barnes night. Last time they played, Ingram only had 16. Scotty Barnes went for 22. I do think that both those guys are live today. I just hope that one of them doesn't sort of cannibalize the other. All right, Nets taking on the Pistons. Let's start with the player prop perspective here before we get into the spread and the total, which graphics now fixed. I think that this has some really good same game parlay potential legs. I do think some numbers are inflated, especially after last game, when Jalen Duren specifically went absolutely off 20 and 20, 20 plus and 20 plus. And I think that he could have a decent enough game here against the Nets as well, who, though they have Claxton down there, they're not rebounding all that well. They're not protecting the paint all that well. So I think that this could be a decent enough spot to target that area. And Jalen Duren jumps to mind, right? But also Asar Thompson, who we also cashed on last time out. I think there could be some same game parlay potential there, especially with Thompson, who I believe is kind of the guy that's going to get some of the short mid-range and long in the paint shots when Tobias Harris is out, and Tobias Harris is still out. But I also like Cade Cunningham. If we jump into the NBA dashboard here, you can see that this is a Brooklyn team that, they're defending the pull-up jumpers really well, but the catch and shoot, dead last in terms of affected field goal percentage against. And they're allowing, the most assists to their opposing point guards. I think we can get Cade Cunningham involved here as well because with his assists. And again, we're talking kind of same game parlay-esque. His assist line is, I think, at 9.5 right now, which is definitely high. But I do think that we could see an elevated catch and shoot, spot from some of the guys out there today to make some threes, right? Maybe like a Duncan Robinson. You'd see Brooklyn not exactly all that great above the break or the left corner. But what if Cade Cunningham drives? They're pretty bad in isolation, drives, gets into the paint, and is able to dish to someone like Jalen Duren or even Asar Thompson, right? Because this team is so bad at defending the paint. So I do like both Duren and Asar Thompson to go out there and be able to score. But Cade Cunningham, from an assist perspective, and maybe some of the catch and shoot shooters, could be a good spot. Now, obviously, we haven't even mentioned anything with the Nets, right? I'm not looking at the Nets whatsoever here. I don't believe in their defense. In fact, they're the 30th ranked defensive efficiency right now in terms of, all teams' rankings. And also, Cam Thomas is out, so a massive hit to their scoring profile, right? So, I like the Pistons in this spot. But again, I think everything's a little inflated because of the situation, but there could easily be some nice same-game parlay builds in this one as well. So I kind of like the idea of something involving the Pistons and them having success, but maybe it's like Pistons -4.5, Thompson 10 plus points, Duren 15 plus points, Cade 6 plus, something like that. You know what I mean? So keep an eye on the final plays. I think that we could really take a block of wood and whittle something in this game. Next up, Spurs taking on the Rockets. This should be a very good game. Right now, Spurs 3.5 point dogs. The total sitting at 224.5. I think this, like I said, is going to be a very, very good game and a close game, which worries me about where I lean on the side here because I do like the Rockets, but 4 points I think could matter in this spot. I'm going to stick to my guts and stick to my guns here and side with the Rockets for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, this is obviously a Spurs team that definitely emphasizes scoring in the paint. Makes sense with Wemby and the size. But this Rockets team is arguably the tallest and biggest starting lineup in the league, right, in terms of average size. Like, Kevin Durant's now playing their 3, but Asar Thompson as their 1, Okogie as their 2, Jabari Smith, Sengun, they have Steven Adams coming in there. So, like, this is this is a spot in which I would assume the Spurs don't have the easiest, we should say that, the easiest of times, coming in and being like, all right, we're just going to go score down low, right? Like, that would be their MO, but I don't think it's going to be the case here because of the size of the Rockets. Not just the size, they're also 7th right now in points in the paint allowed to their opponents. In the paint, 37.8 frequent field goal percentage, and then at the restricted area, 67. So decent enough numbers. So I do like the Rockets from a defensive standpoint. But when it comes to, who's going to score for the Rockets, I do have some question marks. The way you attack the Spurs team, I shouldn't be breaking any news to anyone, but if you aren't aware, Wembanyama blocks everything at the rim, right? So the way you beat this Spurs team, and we've now seen it a few different times, Phoenix did it to them, and then who they just lose to? The Lakers. The perimeter shots and the mid-range shots, not getting sunk into the paint. So I do think that there are some guys to consider here. From a mid-range, Kevin Durant, but I think there'll be a lot of defensive intensity and, prioritization on him and focus. So I think you can kind of find like a Jabari Smith fading into the background in this spot. He's their spot-up guy. He's also a big, so you know what I mean? He's probably going to be left open a lot because his secondary defender will be sagging to try and stop this big Rockets lineup. I think we could see some nice action out of him. So his line is at 14.5 right now. I would probably say if you can get decent enough odds, just take a peek at his over 1.5 threes, because I think that's where his points end up and ultimately come from. So Jabari Smith Jr. over in points is where I'd go from a player prop perspective. Again, I think that the lane of, the three-pointer, the spot up, is how they're going to score some points today. But this is still a good Spurs defense, right? I mean, second in terms of points in the paint, points allowed per game, third in defensive efficiency. I'm going to lean under in this spot. I think the Spurs could struggle to score in the paint, which is they like to do. And now we're asking the Raptors to go out there and shoot a bunch of threes, which really isn't their MO. So I'm going to lean under 224. I think this is a defensive game. All right, we got the Heat taking on the Hornets. Heat 5-point favorites, actually kind of a low number for what I would have guessed. Total sitting at 242.5. Now, why do I say it's a low number? I do think that this Heat's defense is far better than the Hornets in some particular spots. And this is a team that's 2-0 at home this year, and they're going up against the Hornets who are 1-3 on the road. I think the Heat -5, I don't want to overthink it. That is my spread lean here. But that total at 242.5, and let me know in the comments if you guys understand this. So just comment like the Heat game and the Hornets game. Yeah, that logic makes sense. Something that I know that you're referencing this, right? If I think the Heat have the far and away better defense, and that's why we like the Heat, this is where my mind starts to overthink, and I'm trying to prevent it. If I think that, this total is really, really high, but I also kind of coincidentally like the Heat in this game because of their defense, those don't correlate, right? That number is telling me that this Heat team most likely not playing the best defense today, and we can see where those holes would be, right? So that's what I referenced earlier, being like this spread's a little bit lower than I thought, but it makes sense to some degree. The Heat aren't covering the perimeter all that well right now. 22nd in terms of points allowed from 3, in terms of the 1, 2, and 3 of the other teams. So LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton, and I guess it'd be Knuppel in this spot. They're like bottom 5 in terms of 3-pointers allowed to those positions, the 1, 2, and 3. So I get it. If you can dominate the perimeter, you can hang with this Heat team, right? And we've already seen them struggle at times this year with that. But I do think the defense will show up when it needs to. I'm going to lean towards the Heat and the under. Again, even though I can totally see why this line is where it's at from a total perspective, I'm just hoping, I guess, that this Heat defense does ultimately end up coming through. In terms of a player prop, I do like LaMelo in this spot. I mean, assuming he's healthy, he is on the injury report as probable right now, but like I've been ranting on social media, guys, this freaking NBA injury report and reporting, that's a better word to use, is just absolute BS right now. If he doesn't play, I like the Heat even more, right? If he does play, I do think that he could actually have a good game on the perimeter, and we're looking at a 23.5 points line for him, an 8.5 assist line, rebounds of 5.5, which he's hit in, I believe, 6 or 5 straight games. His 3-pointers is really high, 3.5, but you're getting decent odds for it. I think that LaMelo could have a decent game here on the perimeter, and it's like, yeah, well, if he doesn't have a good game, then this Hornets team stands no chance. So he's got to have a good game. But I don't mind the under, the Heat, or considering LaMelo overall. Real quick, really important that you listen up. We just talked about the under in that game, right? And the consensus line out there is 242.5. I like the under. Looking into the odds, we got a 245.5 over on Novig. Yes, this is a promo for Novig, but it seriously is something you should consider signing up for. Available in a ton of states. It is different than a sportsbook, guys. This is a social sportsbook exchange going up against real people like you and me, Joe Schmoes, right? They're setting their own lines, obviously with their own prices as well from time to time, meaning you can get lines that are different than the market. And we just got a softer line at 244.5 over on Novig. So check it out. Link down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. They've now figured out and added parlays, which is really, really cool over there as well. Link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Right now, spend $5, get $50 in Novig coins, which is real currency on that app. So go check it out, guys. That link again will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Make sure to use code GUYBOSTON when prompted. Let's jump back into these games, but seriously, check out Novig. Bucks taking on the Bulls. I feel like we have, and I guess as you could say this about any big slate, but we have some really big spread games on the slate that aren't all that great, but then we have a few really good ones that, even just from an NBA fan perspective, I'm excited to watch. Like this one, right? Bucks and the Bulls, two teams that, don't necessarily match up all that well on paper, but we should see a decent enough game, I would say. You have both teams who have played decent enough, in the paint defense, which matters for both of these squads, right? And both teams have actually looked okay along the perimeter. I don't think that's necessarily going to be fully long-term. It could be, though, right? But overall, I do think the Bulls are the better offense right now, and they're just playing with a pace that has been pretty, cool to watch, because even though their pace is, they're number one in the league in terms of pace, it's not like they're just running around chicken with their head cut off. And like I mentioned, this is still a top 12 team in opponents' points per game allowed, in top 6 or top half of the league in terms of defensive efficiency, and ranked 7th on the road this year. So it's like, yeah, you'd think playing at that pace they'd be getting demolished and all that, but not so much. They've been obviously very good this year. And you know what? I think for the plus money, that might be the side that I take a peek at. I think this Bucks team's good, better than people think, but I think the Bulls can do some damage. Now, what I will say, and this is a big one here, we just talked about the Bulls, and this is why I love the dashboard, guys. There are just so many different nuggets of information. We talked about the Bulls being the number one pace team in the league, right? And they're shooting a miraculous 63.5% in transition in terms of field goal percentage. But look at the Bucks, man. Under 50% to their opponents in transition. They are getting back and doing the damn thing, right? And also, you look at this. Okay, well, they take a lot of catch and shoot threes. Bucks really good defensively there. In terms of offense, they run a decent amount of pick and roll. Not exactly the best, but pretty good for Milwaukee. So I do think that this is obviously a spot in which if someone likes Milwaukee, they're at home. They have the best player in this game. I get it. I just think that this Bulls team has a few more options, right? When Trey Jones and Josh Giddey are getting going, they're finding guys like they're painting out there. And I mean, if you haven't watched the Bulls yet this year, that backcourt, and especially when one guy's out and the other one is in and they have a lot of responsibility, they are making the ball move. I credit a lot of this to them. Not necessarily, the emergence of, we should say, Bazelis or Vucevic or anything like that. No, what I would say is that Trey Jones and Josh Giddey specifically have been absolutely really great to watch. So I'm going to lean Bulls, but I do get if someone likes the idea of Milwaukee here in this spot. Total at 240.5. I'm going to actually lean under very slightly in this spot. Obviously, it's not lost on me as to why this total is up there. We just got finished saying, this is a Bulls team that runs a ton, number one pace team. But I am going to lean under because of the transition defense and a couple of those other little, nuggets that we found in terms of how this this Bucks team plays defense, right? And the Bulls, again, I do want to give a little defensive credit here. So under 240.5. This is also a spot, though, I'm not trying to argue something if they're like, dude, you have two fast-paced teams and two teams with, obviously, Giannis can score at any moment, and the Bulls' offense looks pretty efficient right now. I get it if someone likes the over. It's a little too high for me. I actually don't have any player prop spots in this game, but we are always digging through it today, so keep an eye on the final plays. Grizzlies taking on the Mavs. Both these teams are just underwhelming this year, right? Memphis coming off of 4 straight losses. Dallas coming off of 3 straight losses. 4.5 points is, a decent amount to ask of this Grizzlies team as of right now. But realistically, is it? This Dallas squad, their offense looks scary. And no Anthony Davis. Actually, Anthony Davis may come back today, right? He's listed as questionable, but not in the projected lineup. I think he's actually listed as doubtful, so he's probably out. Still no Exum, Irving, or obviously Lively. I will say I do like the starting lineup move that Dallas made, last game? Bringing D'Angelo Russell in, and then the starting lineup being Russell, Flagg, Christie, Washington, and Gafford. When obviously Davis comes back, it'll be Davis instead of Gafford. I think that is a decent move in a more competitive starting lineup. So I give him credit for that, but realistically, there's nothing that I'm watching here that I think this Dallas team has any offensive legs. I was leaning Dallas probably, 40-ish minutes ago, but then again, like just looking at their game logs and their shooting efficiencies, it's like, what are they doing? They're the least efficient offense in the entire league as of right now. So yeah, I wanted to go Dallas. I do like their new starting lineup, and I do think, from the perspective of being able to score down low and stuff like that, they'd be better at that today than normal. Memphis also struggles with the above the break, so that could be huge, but I just could not get there. So I'm going to lean towards this Grizzlies team. I don't think that I bet it myself, though. Total sitting at 230.5. Your guess is as good as mine. I think this is one of the most volatile games here that we have on today's slate. I guess I would lean towards the under because, again, I'm not writing home the Del Mom and Pop about Dallas's offense right now. Really, really, really bad. Dead last in points per game and efficiency. One player prop that I don't mind the idea of, and I don't know if we can actually get this down because I think his line is going to be pretty crazy just due to Anthony Davis being on the injury, but I like the idea of someone in the corner, which I would think of Max Christie or PJ Washington, but PJ Washington specifically, a guy that I like the idea of him knocking down a couple threes here, but I could also pivot to Max Christie. This is a Memphis team that does leave the corners pretty wide open, and obviously you look at someone like Max Christie, who's his line's now, I think, bumped up to 2.5, but it's at like plus 150. So if you can either get a juiced 1.5, that makes you more comfortable, which he's done in all but one game this year, or just take the long shot on that plus 150 spot, I don't necessarily mind it. And then PJ Washington, kind of the same thing. His is at 1.5. He's definitely shooting less than I would have thought. Last year he kind of emerged as a shooter. At the beginning of the year, he's actually shooting a bunch of threes, but maybe he is driving a little bit more now with Anthony Davis out. Another large spread here, Minnesota taking on Utah. We do have Anthony Edwards, and I'm not guessing that there's going to be a minutes restriction. I think that we should see him be able to be, fully good to go. In that last game against New York, yeah, they get beat, but Anthony Edwards did play, I think it was, 29-ish minutes, so I don't think that there's going to be much of a minutes restriction here on this end. They did get kind of crushed by New York, right? But this Jazz offense, I don't think has exactly the same oomph behind it and the star power that New York does. I like the Timberwolves. 12 is definitely a big number, but I think that that's still going to be, again, if these weren't NBA Cup games, maybe, just maybe, I'd be like, that's a little too much. I'm not loving it, but the NBA Cup and obviously teams wanting to win by a lot does, I'm not going to lie, lean me in a direction of thinking that some of these big favorites will win by these numbers more often than not. I'm very skeptical of double-digit spreads, which you guys are aware of. I've probably in like 5 years of doing this here on YouTube, probably have taken like a handful of double-digit spreads, right? So NBA Cup's the only time that I think that I would look at that. In terms of what we have from a total, what we have this game pegged at right now on our end is 119 to 109. So that's going to be, 228.5 or 228. I think that is a fairly accurate number. I worry that the Jazz play with a decent amount of pace here and kind of muddy up somewhat of an under, because though Minnesota isn't always a fast-paced team or anything like that, like, they will go if you give them the opportunity, right? With Edwards or DiVincenzo, like, they'll go. But I still think I'm going to trust my guns, trust my numbers. I'm going to lean under 231.5 here today. I'm leaning towards a lot of unders, aren't I? Before we do dive into this, that was tough to say, dive into this Nuggets and Warriors game, I want you guys to comment your team, so your fandom, right? The team that you support down in the comments. I love doing this. I tell you guys that, we've done it for MLB and NFL, and, I want to do it again here for the NBA, just to get us a vibe and a sense of the teams that we root for, because obviously when you have waiters on the line every single night, it kind of changes where your fandom is, but what is that actual diehardness? For me, it's Boston, New England teams, mainly Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, tossing the Bruins every now and then, but I do want to know what your fandom is. So let me know down in the comments, and that'll also tell me that you made it this far in the video, right? 2 birds, 1 stone. I can recognize who the real ones are by that. Let's dive into this one. We got the Nuggets taking on Golden State. Pretty damn big spread here, and that would allude to one thing. Steph Curry still out. I think he's due back maybe in a couple days, but yes, out of this one. Jimmy Butler's questionable, and then Draymond Green is probable. So obviously it makes a little bit of sense as to why we have Denver ranked, rated where they are in terms of the spread. I don't love this Golden State offense, especially without Steph, because with them, I think that they're a little bit better, but overall Denver is a very good team, and they beat Miami, who I do think is a tough team there, by 10 points last time out. Golden State's coming off a loss to the Kings. They beat the Suns. They lost to Indiana of all teams. They've already lost to Portland this year. Like, this team will catch some bad L's, and Denver at home 4-0 this year. Golden State 1-4 on the road. I think it's another spot in which I can't see the underdog pulling out the big number. So I'm going to lean Nuggets in this spot. I don't mind the idea of an over, though. I know I just got finished saying that, Washington's offense I don't like. And I'm not trying to take the over because I like the offense. But I do think that teams, at times during the games, not for an entire game, especially with the Warriors, who aren't exactly the fastest-paced team, but there are times during the game when I think teams like a light bulb goes off when they play Denver, and it's like, hey, why don't we try running on them? It kind of mitigates anything of Murray and Jokic, so they're two best players on the floor, right? Obviously, you do have Brown, Cameron Johnson, even Aaron Gordon, who can run in transition. But again, you kind of take their 1 and 2 players and say, hey, if we run, they're not exactly like the best transition guys, right? And I think teams can do that at times. So we could see a game of runs here that seems like the Nuggets are still controlling the game, but overall, the score's just kind of creeping up and up and up. If this is at like 238.5, no, it's not what I wouldn't love it there. But I think I have this one right around like 231, 230. So I'm going to lean towards the over. Kings taking on the Thunder. We're going to want to keep an eye on the injury report here. Sabonis is questionable. Lou Dort is questionable. Both those, Sabonis didn't play last game. Lou Dort, did he? I can't remember, but he was questionable heading into the game. Still no, Kenrich Williams or J-Dub for this Thunder team. In fact, J-Dub, I do believe, is due back sometime during November, so we might be nearing his return. In terms of where we go in this one, I think that this interior defense for the Kings is just not up to snuff, and that is obviously like where the Thunder like to go out there and score. But again, guys, of course, it's a huge 10.5 point spread. Do we get there? We shall see. I do think the Thunder can score at will in the paint. Now, where is this Sacramento team going to try and score from? The mid-range, the Thunder have actually been pretty good at stopping that. Sacramento's offensive efficiency is not all that great. Well, they're going up against not even arguably the best defensive efficiency team in the league. So I do think that we see, OKC kind of control it. In terms of a total, man, I think OKC is going to want to run, and Sacramento may just allow them to. I guess OKC team total over. I do think this might be like a hot knife going through bread and butter, whatever the hell the damn saying is. From a player prop perspective, I think that we could, also Chet Holmgren coming back this game, so that's worth noting. We could see Shea have a really, really good day. Whether it's isolation, whether it's pick and roll, I think that he's, up for the challenge here, especially given the fact that those are two weak-ish spots here against this King squad. Now, we have to ask ourselves, is 31.5, like at what point is Shea's number just a little bit too high? It's at 31.5. He's only gone for 32 in 3 games so far this season, one of which being against this, not one of which, but he did play against this Kings team and only had 31. So where do we come out on him? I would say he's good for, 32 points in an NBA Cup game. I don't necessarily mind the idea of that, but again, it's such a high number. Now, he's going to get the usage. He's going to get the shots. We know that, but it is such a high number. I'm going to lean towards Shea in this spot. I think that he could score in the paint, especially if I do think that we could see some running in this game, which he'll be able to definitely capitalize on. But that pick and roll and the isolation might just be too much to not jump at. You know what I mean? Guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. That is our 11th game on the slate. Got through them all, 33 minutes. Really do appreciate everyone tuning in. If you guys did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Everyone, best of luck tonight. Keep an eye on the final plays for the pin in the pin comment for the final plays. Catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.